Hello, welcome to my channel. Today, I will show you the recap of a 2014 romance movie titled, The Maid. Spoiler alert, watch out and take care. The movie starts with Jack, who travels to England to visit his father David for his birthday. Upon arriving at David's home, David tries to greet him pleasantly, but he angrily replies. He says he wished the driver didn't get the location so he could return to America. He calls his father by his name David despite that David calls him son. David takes him to his room and asks him why he hates him so much. Jack replies that if David gives him a complete booklet, he will write the reasons in the booklet. He asks David to stop calling him a son, and walks David out of his room. Jack retires to bed that night, and the following day as he wakes, he goes towards his window and sits there smoking. He sees a beautiful lady walking in the garden and walks towards her. He leaves his room and peeps at the lady who is busy spreading some clothes. David meets him there and taps him. He asks David who the lady is, and David tells him the lady is Maria, his new maid. David mocks him that he knows why he is peeping at Maria and says Maria is beautiful and she is also an excellent cook, so that's why he employed her. Maria walks towards them, and he introduces Maria to Jack and tells Jack he is going for a meeting. David leaves and leaves Jack in the care of Maria. Jack requests a drink, and Maria brings it for him. She engages him in a conversation and asks him if he will be staying long in England. He tells Maria he will stay for a while as he and David aren't close. Maria assumes he is closer to his mother, so she asks him if he is closer to his mother. Rather than replying, Jack gets angry and walks out. He walks to his room, and Maria enters to apologize. She asks him about his mom, and he tells her she is gone. Maria is shocked at this information. She heard from David that he was recently divorced. She tells David this, and he gets angry again. He picks up his camera and goes to the town. He takes random pictures of the environment. While taking the pictures, he walks beside a girl. He returns home, and Maria approaches him to apologize again. He tells her his mother is dead and his mother died during childbirth. He says he feels responsible for his mother's death, and Maria comforts him. He says the wife David is talking about is his stepmother Linda. It is night, and Maria leaves their home. David returns at night and asks Jack to go out with him, but Jack refuses to go out with him. The next morning, Jack goes out to take his random pictures. The lady he saw on the way the day before walks up to him and introduces herself as Becky. She asks him if he is in town with his family or girlfriend, but Jack replies otherwise. Maria passes by on her bicycle, and Jack stares at her. Becky notices something between them, so she asks, and Jack says they are friends. Jack returns home and meets with Maria in the kitchen. Maria says she saw him with a new friend and asks him if he has a girlfriend. He replies otherwise and says none of the girls around his age entice him. Maria asks about his age, and he says 17. Maria comments that he will soon be 18 as David tells her he is coming to celebrate his birthday. Upon hearing David's name, he gets angry and walks out again. Maria meets him in the garden and talks with him. She says she understands what he feels and how he feels neglected by David. She says there is a way parents fuck kids up. He tells her he stays with Uncle Donald in America. He tells her he noticed she was down when she heard about his mother and asks her if she has lost someone close to her too. She replies affirmatively and says it was a long time ago. They get to know each other, and she explains her background to him. She says she was born in Germany and relocated to England about 2 years ago. She tells him she learned English while watching American movies as a kid, and she is fluent in 3 languages. They enter for lunch. During lunch, he tells her he is very comfortable talking to her. They return outside, and Maria tries to change the conversation. She asks him what he wants for his birthday and if he wants something memorable. However, he tells her he hates celebrating birthdays. Maria insists he celebrate his birthday, and he angrily walks out. Again, Maria goes into his room to cheer him up. He confides in her that his birthday is also his mother's death day, and any time he thinks of celebrating his birthday, he feels very guilty. He asks her who she lost that made her that sad. At first, she didn't want to tell him, but she changes her mind. She tells him that when she was 17 years old, like him, she fell in love with a young boy and she got pregnant with him. The boy insists she aborts the child, which she doesn't want to, so she decides to keep the pregnancy. She hid the pregnancy from her parents for a while, but when they found out, they were furious at her. Her parents were religious, and they were against abortion, so they allowed her to keep the pregnancy. However, after she gave birth, they forced her to give the child for adoption. She says she had never forgiven her parent, and she didn't go to her father's funeral for the same reason. He moves towards her to comfort her, but David arrives. David speaks to Maria for a while and then talks with Jack. He tells Jack he is traveling to see a client in Paris, so Jack will spend his birthday with Maria. Jack regrets visiting and gets angry. Later that evening, Maria and Jack talk again. Maria asks about Jack's stepmother and how they related. Jack narrates that, at first, he didn't know Linda wasn't his mother until Linda gave birth to her son Matthew. Since then, Linda maltreated him for Matthew, and his father was too busy to notice. One day, he saw his mother's picture and asked Linda. Linda happily told him she wasn't his mother. Maria advises that since David is now divorced, Jack should give David a second chance. They finish their conversation and watch a movie. Jack looks at Maria seductively. That night, he looks at Maria's picture and masturbates. The next day is his birthday. Maria goes out that morning and sees her ex-boyfriend Jacob. She invites Jacob in for coffee, and Jacob uses that opportunity to ask her for a relationship again. Jack listens to this conversation while peeping by the door. After Jacob leaves, Jack goes to Maria. Maria wishes him a happy birthday, and he asks for his birthday girl. She asks him what he wants, and he tells her he wants her. He says he wants to touch her and hold her. She stops him and reminds him he is a kid. She says it is wrong, and she will never do something like that with him. He walks away and sits down. He accuses her of still loving her ex-boyfriend and asks if she wants to get back with him. She tries to talk calmly and asks him to stop talking like that. She tells him he didn't love her. Instead, he wants a mother, and she isn't his mother. He gets her to be his mother and asks her to make him her son. He tries to touch her breast, and she slaps him. At about the same time, they hear a knock. The visitor is Becky, and she asks Jack to go out with her. Jack leaves home and takes a walk with Becky. On the way, he tells Becky it's his birthday, and he can't get what he wants. Becky offers to give him what he wants and asks him to follow her home, but he declines her offer. He tells her she is a good girl, but he is in love with someone else. He returns home and meets Maria crying. He accuses her of loving him and says that if she doesn't love him, why did she refuse to go? She sees the self-inflicted injury on his hands and hugs him. While they embrace, he touches her breast. Maria gets in the mood too and removes her dress. He feels her romantically until she returns to her sense and asks him to stop. She wears her dress back and goes to the sitting room. Jack comes to meet her, and they talk. She reminds him they have no future together and asks him if he has ever had a girlfriend or intimacy. She calls him a kid, and he gets angry. He says she probably leaves anyone she loves, which is why she left her child. He tells her he will kill himself if she leaves him, so she goes closer to him, and they make out. After their emotional time, she talks to him about making up with his father and asks him to promise her he will patch things up with his father. Later that day, while Maria and Jack touch each other in the kitchen, David arrives. David gives Jack a birthday gift and asks to have dinner with him that night, but Jack refuses and walks out of them. Maria goes to console Jack and begs Jack to go for dinner, so Jack accepts. During the dinner, he calls his father a bastard. He calls him uncaring and unloving. He says David didn't care about his mother, and David denies that. He says he loved his mother, but he had to remarry because he didn't want David to grow up without a mother. He tells him he loved him and his stepbrother equally, and he never blamed Jack for his mother's death. As they talk, Jack sleeps off. The following day, Jack stays in front of the house to await Maria's arrival. He tells Maria not to go to work and tells her he wishes to spend the day with her, so they go to her home together. They begin to make out, but Maria suddenly stops. She tells her she has something to say to him and that she went to find her son after she left her parents. Upon finding out his location, she found out he was dead. He was involved in a hit and run, and he bled to death. She says she blames herself for it, and Jack consoles her. They have their first intercourse that day. Upon arriving home, David begs his son for a second chance, and Jack says he will consider it. The next morning, Jack packs his loads to leave England. Before leaving, he asks Maria if she will visit him, but Maria refuses to make a promise, yet they kiss each other. As Jack prepares to enter the taxi, David asks for a hug. Shockingly, Jack accepts the hug. David watches the cab as it leaves and the movie ends. Thank you for watching the recap. Kindly subscribe to our channel to get notified when we post the next recap. See you next time.